Imagine an entrepreneur flying 30,000 feet above the Atlantic, building in 6 hours what would normally take a team weeks. By the time the wheels touch down, there's working software, documentation, and something credible enough for a high-stakes demo. That sounds like AI hype, but last year, the entrepreneur Mark Ruddock did exactly that, using a technique called Agentic Swarm. So here is the question. Was that a one-off stunt, or are we watching software delivery change shape in real time? In this video, I want to show you 3 things. Why the first wave of AI coding tools helped but didn't change the whole system, what changes when AI agents move from assistants to collaborators, and why the real leadership challenge isn't speed, it's coordination, governance, and direction. To understand how we got here, I think it helps to look at the last few years. Back in 2023, most AI-driven development was using chatbots to help with code snippets, debugging, and problem solving. But the workflow felt a bit like what I would call code tennis. So you'd have an engineer with a problem, and they would serve that problem over to a chatbot. That chatbot would write some code and send it back to the engineer. The engineer would try out the code, probably get some errors, and write up the errors and send it back to the chatbot, who would then write some more code and send it back to the engineer, and so on and so forth. Now, one of the good things about this way of working is that it keeps a human in the loop, with this being the loop, and there's a human there checking the content the AI is producing to make sure there's nothing in there we don't want. But the problem with that is there are so many true negatives, the human can switch off a bit, and they basically become a bit of a copy and paste automaton. And you start thinking, which one of us is the human again? Being this courier of code meant you spent less time reasoning about the system and more time just shuttling content between screens. And that matters because engineers were never spending all day writing code anyway. Research shows it's usually only about 20% of the time. The real work sits in clarification, coordination, trade-offs, testing, and review. So if developers are only spending 20% of the day coding, and that became this crazy game of code tennis, it's no wonder we didn't see the productivity gains that we first hoped would come from AI. The next step was more interesting. Tools like Copilot and automated review assistants started taking pieces of that loop away. They could suggest improvements, spot obvious issues in the code, and flag problem patterns before a teammate even opened a pull request and started the review. That helped. But the real shift came when AI stopped being a chat machine and started being an agent that could take action. An agent can write code, run tests, inspect logs, search documentation, and come back with a more complete working solution. So the human is still in the loop, but the loop gets bigger. Instead of saying, write this function, you can say, write this function, but test it, document it, keep trying it out and running the code, and only come back to me when it's all green ticks. That is a different operating model. And once you accept that model, the next question arrives naturally. Instead of having one agent do that, what if we have 2, or 3, or 4? And AI agents can take on roles. So what happens when several agents work together with distinct responsibilities? What if we make one the coder, one the reviewer, one the scrum master, one the product owner? And what happens when these agents work together with distinct responsibilities? That is what people mean when they say agentic swarm. It's a swarm of different agents with different roles working together. In effect, it's an agile team in a box. And that's why this matters, because the opportunity isn't just about faster code generation. It's about pulling more of the delivery process into the same loop. Planning, implementation, review, and iteration. Stanford's 2025 AI Index said that organizational AI use rose to 78% in 2024, up from 55% in 2023. Imagine what it will be like with Agentic Swarm. It's already moving beyond experimentation. It's starting to become an operating assumption. But this is where leaders can get the story wrong. The headline isn't that machines are coding now. The headline is that software delivery is becoming more orchestration-heavy. The leverage comes when agents can work in parallel, challenge each other, and carry context through a process, which means the limiting factor shifts. It's no longer just typing speed, it's the quality of the workflow they are moving through. That's why structure matters. You need clear roles, clear handoffs, clear quality gates, clear definitions of done. You need guardrails around data, architecture, testing, and release. And you need people who know when to trust the system, when to inspect it closely, and when to stop it. The real skill starts to look less like coding every line yourself and more like conducting an orchestra. And while Mark Ruddock wrote last year about creating a piece of demo-ready software in a few hours using Agentic Swarm, OpenAI just released an article saying they'd created an entire product using multiple agents working together, and that it was delivered in about 1/10 of the time that they would have expected a human team to take. So given all this, what should businesses do? Well, we need to modernize our delivery environments so we can use agents safely. Second, invest in people and experimentation. Teams need new habits for how to collaborate with these agent loops and with each other in this new paradigm. And third, invest in governance. Fast matters, safe matters more. If teams are going to put their feet on the pedals, leadership has to provide the lanes, barriers, and dashboards. The biggest upside here isn't shaving minutes off an individual coding task. It's raising the rate at which the whole organization can learn, ship, and adapt. But that only happens if the system stays aligned. So here's the payoff. The future is probably not going to be one superhuman engineer sitting beside a smarter autocomplete. It's humans directing structured teams of agents through well-designed workflows. The winner will not just move faster, they will coordinate better. They will review better. They will govern better. They'll conduct, not just code. And that takes us back to the opening question. Was that 6-hour flight app a stunt? Maybe partly, but it was also a signal. A preview of what becomes possible when software delivery stops being a sequence of isolated tasks and starts behaving like an orchestrated system. The era of AI-driven delivery is here, and the real question isn't whether your organization will use it, it's whether you will build the operating model to use it well. If you found this video helpful, please let me know in the comments and check out my other videos too. There are more coming, so subscribe if you want to see them. But until then, goodbye.